And welcome in. It is time for another edition of Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday now, January the 24th. I'm Joe Raineri here at the SportsGrid Network. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your days. We've got plenty of headlines around the sports world here today. We're trying to dissect, of course, a lot happening this weekend in the NFL as we have our conference championships up, as the 49ers will try to get back to the dance after that epic meltdown in Miami a few years ago, you will recall, against those Kansas City Chiefs. And in the AFC, you're going to have Baltimore and Kansas City looking to get back to the dance. Not too long ago that, Kansas City, they are regulars when it comes to playing for a world championship. But Baltimore and Lamar, is it their time? There's a lot to unpack in both of those games that we're going to get to coming up in this edition of Game Time Decisions, but also headlines across the board here today. The Miami Dolphins and their stud defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, they have apparently mutually agreed to part ways after only one season. Now, there is no shock that Fangio has been one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL for a long, long time. I thought the Dolphins, it was one of the better moves they made last offseason to lock him up and to get him going. But it appears that they both have decided that maybe it's good for a different direction. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Eagles probably have been behind the scenes recruiting Fangio to come their way. As we welcome in our radio audience here on this Wednesday, it is Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri, talking some NFL headlines here today, including after 1 year, the Dolphins parting ways with their defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, one of the most respected DCs in the game. He did have a contract underway, but apparently, for whatever reason, it sounds like Miami was willing to let him go, and it appears that he is on his way to Philadelphia to take over that position for the Eagles. Now, Fangio he actually spent the 2022 season as a consultant with the Eagles. He did almost sign an extension there, signed a deal to become their DC, but he ended up going to Miami instead. And now it looks like Philadelphia realized the error of their ways by getting Matt Patricia instead. Had that work out there. And looks like he is going to take over a very young, they were injured, but underperforming defense there for the Eagles as Nick Sirianni. This is maybe one of the two biggest hires of his NFL career once he solidifies this deal. The next will be getting the right offensive coordinator, as once Shane Steichen left. Don't forget, Sirianni originally called the plays in that year to the Super Bowl there a couple of seasons back, but he did end up passing the reins off to Shane Steichen. And then, of course, once the season was over there, Steichen ended up going and becoming the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Brian Johnson stepped in. That didn't work, as we learned yesterday, of course, that they have parted ways with him. So Sirianni, this is a great first hire for him, getting Fangio and getting him away from the Dolphins, who had, of course, major injuries on the defensive side of the ball here this year. Getting him away from there is absolutely huge in that first step of filling the coordinator roles. Also, we are hearing, just when you thought you couldn't get enough of Brandon Staley. Well, Brandon Staley, the former Chargers head coach, was a defensive-minded guy. Don't forget, it was a defensive DC. He is a guy that, which is why it was so shocking that the defenses of the Chargers, while he was the head coach, were so poor. But that was it. He was, I believe it was one season as the defensive coordinator for the Rams in 2020. Then he took the Chargers job. and it just progressively got worse from there. But it does appear that he is getting absolutely some love in the marketplace from the Miami Dolphins, as him and Mike McDaniel actually have a relationship there. They share the same agent, and from what we're hearing, he may very well take over the reins on the defensive side there for the Miami Dolphins. Also, we're hearing Ron Rivera getting some interest in coordinator spots, defensive coordinator spots from a couple of different teams there. That is going to be very interesting to see what happens with him. And, of course, Ero Evero, who was the going through right now some head coaching interviews. This is a guy that a lot of people think is going to make not only a great defensive coordinator if he stays in that role. He was the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers this past season. He's 43 years old. That unit was, just decimated there because the offense couldn't move the ball. But he had a great defense there, and it looks like if he doesn't land a head coaching job, it does look like he may very well be available for a defensive coordinator job somewhere. And I think Miami would be a tremendous spot for him. So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open here as the rumor mill. Still a lot of vacancies in the head coaching role in the NFL. We heard that another interview with Harbaugh and the Falcons did not come to fruition. We're understanding that maybe, just maybe, they opted to say, well, we're going to hold off on that second interview. Now, whether that is from the Harbaugh side or the Atlanta Falcons side, it depends on who you believe. But that just signals to me that maybe, just maybe, the Falcons are a little bit closer to making a decision, and or Harbaugh is very close to making a decision as far as where he may want to go. Also, one guy that will probably get phone calls, why I have no idea, but the Packers today also fired their defensive coordinator. A lot of way overdue there, Joe Barry. And it looks like Green Bay, even though they did turn it around late in the season there into the playoffs, that defense played much better. The reality is they were awful and have been awful under Joe Barry for a couple of years now. So Green Bay Packers are also looking for a DC. So a lot of job openings, still waiting for the dominoes to fall in the head coaching ranks. Who's going to the Chargers? Who's going to the Falcons? Mike Vrabel starting to get a bunch of love here too. So hopefully this week we'll have a little more clarification. We'll dive into some of those games coming up tonight, though, next here on The Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in the divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home-road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news. Trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell,
backup quarterback.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time Decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
prime
took
time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
that was
late
better.
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We did.
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you hanging out with us here as we've got plenty going on across the sports betting landscape here tonight. Plenty of NBA action. Looking forward to this slate of games here tonight simply because of the storylines that surround this lineup here. For instance, right at the top, you've got Minnesota taking on the Washington Wizards, and it doesn't happen often when a head coach absolutely throws his team under the bus, but that's what Chris Finch did the other night after apparently Minnesota was more interested in getting Karl Anthony Towns the opportunity to score 60 or more points in a game. They actually forgot they needed to win the game there, and before they knew it, it ended up costing them as Charlotte just ruined what should have been a great night for Karl Anthony Towns and the Minnesota Timberwolves, but instead it was a big fat L, and boy, oh boy, Finch went absolutely bonkers after that game there, calling out his team. Could not get over it, and good for him. You got to love the accountability there. Well, they're going to be taking on a Wizards team here, and the prevailing thought is we're going to get a defensive effort here big time from Minnesota, who allowed Charlotte to just light them up in that game. The lights we are not usually used to seeing against that Minnesota defense there, but everybody's talking about defense over the last couple of days here now in Minnesota. I mean, congratulations on the 62 points there, Cat. But my goodness, Finch just crushed them for that lazy defensive effort. And you also, I would imagine, are going to get a pretty inspired effort from them. Doesn't mean they're going to win. It just means that I do think Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, they might have a little more resistance on the court here tonight. Maybe look at a Washington Wizards team total to go under right around that 109, maybe 108 mark, somewhere in that ballpark there. That is going to be an interesting game simply from what kind of response do we get from when a head coach absolutely destroys his team's effort when they were celebrating a big historic 62-point effort by Karl Anthony Towns. Now, speaking of coach, how about the Milwaukee Bucks here tonight? Going to take the court in their first game since, well, getting Adrian Griffin, their head coach, canned. And that's right. We learned about this yesterday. We thought that was very interesting here, that the Milwaukee Bucks, who I mean, it's not like they're in last place. It's not like the Milwaukee Bucks haven't shown signs of greatness. They certainly have the players, but there were enough instances to say and to show that things were not good in Milwaukee here. I mean, it was clear to anyone watching the Bucks this year that the relationship between Giannis and Griffin on the sidelines, in the locker room, not good. So what does Milwaukee do? Well, they fire him, and they now agree to a contract with, I mean, if you want to win in the playoffs, right? If your goal is to get back to the playoffs and win a championship, who better to bring in than what's that? Doc Rivers. Oh, yeah, that's right. Doc Rivers is no good in the playoffs. I don't know what in the hell the Milwaukee Bucks think they're getting with Doc Rivers here, but he is on his way to the team. But before he gets there, they have a game here tonight against what I think, and I think the market believes, has been one of the best team in the NBA over the last couple of weeks, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have been going scorched earth since their trip to France. This team has been playing inspired basketball, great basketball here, the Cavs. Not to mention, one of their wins over the last couple of weeks happened to come against the Milwaukee Bucks a week ago. And how did that end? Well, that ended with a beatdown of epic beatdown. We're talking about a 40-point win by the Cavs against the Bucks. Now, Giannis did not play in that game. We get that, but he is playing in this game here tonight. And Milwaukee, just a week ago, getting embarrassed like that, now has an opportunity to prove to the world that it wasn't they that were the issue. It was their head coach. And now that he's no longer there, well, then we should see nothing but defense here tonight. We should see nothing but an inspired effort. Now, I got to believe Giannis is going to come out guns blazing here tonight, because something tells me a coach doesn't get fired after 45, 50 games in a season when you're 20 games above 500. A coach does not get fired unless your superstar on a team approves it or cannot handle working with him anymore. And I think that's exactly it. But what a fool Giannis and they will look is if they get boat raced by Cleveland again here tonight at home. All we keep hearing about is that they feel much better now. They love the Doc Rivers hire. They are going to play inspired. And I truly believe they are going to come out and give the best effort they have. But the question is that good enough? Because I'm pretty sure Dame Lillard, no matter who the coach is not going to play any defense here tonight. But we do know that Cleveland likes to play some defense. We know Mitchell loves to chuck up threes. We know this team, Cleveland, playing its best basketball. The number keeps rising, though. 6.5 overnight to 7, 7.5 starting to pop up. I do think this is a good time to sell high on the Cleveland Cavs, because I do not believe they are as elite as the market believes they are. I do think this is a good spot for Milwaukee. Too much firepower. If they play just a little bit of defense, they should not only avenge the loss, the embarrassing loss from a week ago, they should be able to start their new era with Doc Rivers with a W. And that is exactly what is happening and coming up here tonight. So those, right off the bat, are two great storylines that the NBA is giving us. We also have Oklahoma City taking on San Antonio, and that should be an interesting game, because I truly believe OKC is a team that is coming together at the right time here, guys. The future looks really bright, but is it bright enough that we want to lay 320 against San Antonio? Not to mention Oklahoma City barely won against the Portland Trailblazers last night. A lot of controversy there about whether Portland actually got the timeout late. They're playing that game under protest. OKC won it, but now this is the second of a back-to-back. And yes, it is against San Antonio, but let's be realistic. They barely won against Portland last night. So also keep in mind, too, over the last 11 games, the Spurs have actually ratcheted up the defense here a little bit. 14th in the league in defensive rating here over the last 2.5 weeks. So Pop has got them. They were 25th. And now they are 14th. So that is a huge effort, and that's all defense is in the NBA. It's not scheme. It's effort with these guys. And you got to love the effort San Antonio has been putting into that side of the ball. And if that continues into this game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible. And also, the Golden State Warriors, finally, after the tragic passing of their assistant coach, they are taking the court tonight, laying 6.5 against the Atlanta Hawks. We'll have much more on this lineup here tonight, but amazing storylines, amazing games, not to mention on the ice. We'll take a look at the NHL when we return here on Game Time Decisions.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in the divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home-road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The early line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time
I
Decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good better.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right. right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri, joined by the one and only Mr. George Kurtz here tonight in the Sports Grid Network. And, George, we got a loaded slate on the ice in the NHL, and we'll start there because it's been an interesting couple of days, especially if you've been backing big dogs here. You mentioned it a couple of nights ago. In fact, Monday night, the Kings and the Sharks the Kings are still trying to figure out where it went wrong, as they were nearly a $4 favorite in that game. I don't know that we have that big a dog on the card here tonight, but I do think it's a good bounce back spot for the Panthers here tonight, taking on Arizona. They're about minus 250 here, but at some point they're going to bounce back here. Is tonight the night?
I mean, listen, I think the Panthers are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, if not the NHL. But minus 250, Arizona is not a bad team. We're not talking about Chicago Blackhawks here with San Jose Sharks. Arizona's a pesky little team here. They're on the cusp of a playoff team. All right, they're either right in the 8th spot or right out of the 8th spot there. So they're right there. I'm not laying on 250 with the Panthers. I'm not. They are the better team. Do I think they'll win? Sure, but I'm not paying that price. And since I'm unsure if they're going to win or not, they're not a great parlay team for me either. I think it's a game more if you want to go as far as props or anytime goal scorer, sure. You can go with Kachuk or Verhaeghe. Arizona, go Keller, who's had a very good season there. I'd probably go that direction rather than taking the Panthers straight up or putting them in a parlay.
Yeah, I mean, even the puck line here tonight at plus money may not be a bad look if you think they're going to be in good form. But once again, Bobrovsky's hit or miss. Started the season great and then just starts to come back down to earth, and it's never a good thing. But what about the Winnipeg Jets here? Are you a believer that they go on the road and handle the Maple Leafs tonight?
The problem with Winnipeg is this. They've had a fantastic season. Well, again, another team that a very pleasant surprise is probably too strong a word, but we didn't see them playing this well. All right. I mean, they were, right. Joe, during the offseason, we were crushing them because is Scheifele going to stay? Hellebuck, they both seemed to want out. They had to buy out Blake Wheeler. Hey, they re-signed both. Now they're one of the best teams in the NHL. However, Scheifele's not playing tonight, right? He's on the IL. They did get Kyle Connor back about a week ago, but he's only had one goal in 3 or 4 games of returning, and that one goal was an empty netter. So he's still trying to get his feet under him there. So I kind of like Toronto tonight. I think that's where I would go here. Normally in this game would be an easy over for me as well, but even the books know this. It's even money. Even they know Winnipeg probably not going to score the goals that we would expect from them tonight. I still lean towards the over because I don't trust Samsonov, Jones, Wall, who's ever going in net there for Toronto. Don't trust them there, but not enough for me to put any money. I lean Toronto in this game. I think they get it done.
Yeah, I mean, 2-4-1 in their last 7 games is not exactly encouragement there. I'm with you, George. What about the Bruins, though? Laying a small number, minus 140, 6 is a total against the Hurricanes. Bruins at home? Am I missing something?
If you are, I don't know what it is, because I thought this was a little wacky as well here. Smells a little bit. Hey, minus 146 is a little high, but it's not drastically high for a Bruins team. It's not that Carolina's a bad team. I think Carolina, when fully healthy, there it is one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, but they're not fully healthy. Antti Ranta's in net. He's their 3rd-string goalie now, right? Anderson won. Kochetkov had taken over the starting job before the concussion, and then Ranta, who at one point was very close to being released by the team who was playing so poorly. All right, and maybe more importantly, Svechnikov is also out tonight. He's not going to play. So I'm surprised this number is not a dime higher, maybe even 15 cents higher here. Give me the Bruins. Like I said, it's in Boston. You could make it up. Carolina's not there too. It's definitely 2 of their top players, not their top 2 players here. Give me the Bruins. I think they take care of business here. I'm going to have Pasternak for an anytime goal as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. A very strange number in this one. I am absolutely, see what you think here. I am going to take the puck line with the Caps here tonight as they are taking on the red-hot Colorado Avalanche here. And, I mean, listen, Gert, they can't keep scoring 7 goals a game. It's just not going to happen with the Avs. I mean, now, granted, they have been for, 14 goals, I think, in the last couple of games. They have been great, but call me crazy here. Would not shock me at all if the Caps have an opportunity to win this game outright late in the 3rd. So I don't mind taking the puck line at plus money.
I'm going to leave you alone to do that. All right. This is one of my parlays. Okay. I'm going to hit the Caps to beat, the Colorado Avalanche to beat the Caps here. The Caps have been doing it with mirrors all season long. I mean, come on. Ovechkin doesn't even have double-digit goals yet. He's not scoring at all. It looks like Father Time has caught up to him in a big way here. I mean, how is this team winning? How are they winning here? All right, so it's just what they've done here. And even John Carlson, the old pro defenseman, he's not playing all that well. He's had a solid year, but not a John Carlson year. I know Oshie's been up and down, been hurt a lot here. Kuznetsov is on the back of a milk carton. No one knows what's going on with him. I don't know how this team wins games ever. Right now, I don't think they're a playoff team here. It's it's in Colorado. They are hot. McKinnon's scoring like 17 points a game here. Give me the Avalanche all day here. I can't trust the Caps at all. That being said, the unsung hero for the Caps is Charles Lindgren. I haven't checked before if he's going to be the goalie type, but he has been their unsung hero. He should be the number one goaltender, not Darcy Kemper.
Talk to me about the Canucks here. Vancouver tonight. I think, about a $2 favorite taking on the Blues. What are we thinking we're going to get in this one? How are you leaning it?
Yeah, 240 here. They were sort of that other team. Like, do I want to take Vancouver as my second hit for the parlay, or do I want to go with the team in the next game? I went with the team in the next game here. It's nothing against Vancouver. I think they win the game here. St. Louis is the problem. Joe, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. Bennington sometimes his plays, wow, he's really good, and sometimes he's got more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese there. You just don't know which team is going to show up here for the St. Louis Blues, which is why I stayed away from them as far as the parlay. I think the Canucks win the game here. They're the more talented team. You want to go with an anytime goal scorer, Pettersson, JT Miller would be my top two choices here. Maybe you want to go Quinn Hughes to get a point, or maybe a point on the power play there. Vancouver scores, and they score in bunches here. Demko is... If he's not the Vezina Trophy leader, he's certainly top two, top three. He's played fantastic for the Canucks. Shutout in his last game here. I like the Canucks a lot. I just chose the Kraken as my parlay partner instead of the Canucks, but I think they take care of business tonight.
Oh, please. Big swing for the fences there, fading the Blackhawks. Talk to me about the Sabres and the Kings. It's always been... Well, at one time during the season, it was just over and forget about it with the Sabres and the Kings. What are we at that point with these two teams? Just take the over, expect some goals?
No, because we know what Sabres can score. They generally can't stop them. The Kings are not scoring right now. All right, you already said, what was your opening of this segment, right? How the monster favorites the last two nights have screwed us. Well, the Kings were one of those favorites Monday night. And a bunch of us, I think everybody on this network had the Kings. Maybe the second half of a parlay, whatever it might have been. I know I did. And they didn't show up against San Jose. They didn't show up against. And it was even more disappointing is they're losing, right? And then they tie it late. They come out of nowhere. It's, all right, they'll win it in overtime. They're the better team. No, they don't score in overtime. All right, they're the better team in the shootout. They'll win. No, they lose in the shootout. So they screwed you twice. All right, no. They haven't been scoring goals now for weeks. All right, they generally don't let up a lot, but they haven't been scoring goals for weeks. Now, the Sabres can score goals here. I can't trust the Kings. Just can't do it. I really want to take the over. That's where I want to go here. But for all I know, the Kings are going to lose 4-2. Because they can't put the puck in the net. I can't trust them right now. I'm leaving this game alone. The Kings are going to have to show me something before I go back to this well. Like I said, that Monday's loss is very fresh in my mind of how, like I said, they screwed us over. Maybe the San Jose Sharks screwed us over because they beat the Rangers last night as well. Once again, just destroying the second half of a lot of people's parlays.
Yeah, no, they've been. It's not been good at all there last couple of nights. And who knows? Is the Blackhawks? I mean, you're on the Kraken here, but the Blackhawks, I guess, are the biggest dog on the card here tonight, right? Or what? More than $3 here, Kurtz?
They're $2.85, so it's not quite
okay.
$3. The Blackhawks, listen, they've been they're a bad team. All right, but they've been pesky. They don't get blown out all that. It's not the San Jose Sharks who were losing 9-0 at times in October, right? It was a joke. The Blackhawks have generally been somewhat competitive. So I think they'll make me sweat it out tonight. I do think they'll make me sweat it out. I don't think they're going to lose 6-1. I'd like them to lose 6-1, but I don't think they will. But still, Seattle has been a really hot team here. They're playing well. They have found their mojo from last season. It took a while. It took about 2.5 months, but they have found their mojo here. They're playing well. Grubauer was just activated off long-term IR. Not that means much. DeCourt should be the starter. He's been playing really well for them. But I like Seattle a whole bunch in this game. I just don't see Seattle being that team that will have a letdown versus a bad team. You know what I mean? We know some teams, we're playing Chicago. Well, we'll throw our helmets on there. Well, the game's over. I don't think Seattle's that kind of team. They're more of a lunch pail team. I think they'll take care of business tonight. So, yeah, they are the second half of my parlay. But I said I don't mind you going with Vancouver either. And that's where you wanted to go. I think they win also here. Either way, I think you're good.
So we talked the other night, Sunday. Patrick Roy, the new coach of the Islanders, there. They came back and they beat Dallas. They almost came back and beat the Golden Knights last night, trying to get into overtime here. So far, so good in your mind here? A change is good for the Islanders?
I don't think it's bad. Man, I'm a Patrick Roy guy. I think he's a guy who's interesting. He's fun. He's going to make the press conference more interesting, and he'll get through the team. Right? The team can now no longer ignore the head coach. Lane Lambert, he was a nothing player. What does he know? Patrick Roy, we know, is a god. All right, one of the best, if not the best NHL goaltender of all time. So I don't think it hurts. The two games for the Islanders were interesting. They probably should have lost Sunday and probably should have won last night if you go on by how they played. But, Sorokin played great Sunday, and last night Aiden Hill played well. I think it's good for the Islanders, but I still don't think they're a playoff team, Joe.
Well, it's stranger things have happened here, but we'll see if they can get back on track here. Maybe just be a little more hard-nosed to be great, Carts. Appreciate the time. Good luck with those plays. Game Time Decisions returns after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with one touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news. Trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell,
backup quarterback.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time Decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
late
better.
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, game time decisions here on the SportsGrid Network on this Wednesday. Certainly appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us as, well, we got plenty of games here tonight. College basketball, NHL, NBA. Oh, yeah, we still got a couple of football games that remain in the National Football League, and nobody better to talk some NFL with than the man that's been cashing them tickets all season long for us. Chris Thurston, CT Betts, stepping up here on Game Time Decisions. Heck of a week last week. Interesting. Big favorites, 1-1. So it's gone according to plan. Listen, I think we have the best four teams here, right? So the bottom, that's kind of all you hope to when you get to this point of the season is have the four best teams. Let's start in the AFC. No doubt, Kansas City, all their faults. They deserve to be here. Baltimore certainly deserves to be here. So what are we going to get with this battle royale in Baltimore here on Sunday?
Yeah, you can't ask for a better one here in the AFC, Joe. And I think these offenses are both in for a really difficult task going against these solid D for both the Chiefs and the Ravens. I backed the Chiefs the last 2 weeks. We cashed nicely. And the offense for the Chiefs has been much better than we saw during the regular season, right? I do think a lot of that has to do with how kind of decimated the Finns and the Bills were on defense. I said that in both handicaps on this show. The Ravens defense is kind of a total different animal here. And the linebackers here, like for the Ravens, man, there's going to be a tall task for this KC offense. I think KC is really going to need to establish the run game to kind of stay in the game here. It's going to be very much more difficult for KC to score this weekend than the last two games. The Ravens, on the other hand, they're probably going to look to kind of play action passes quite a bit. The good news for Kansas City, like on this, is that they could overload the box, right? And make the wideouts try and make big plays here. Against the Chiefs have an absolutely amazing secondary. The Chiefs made some nice adjustments that we saw in the second half versus the Bills, and that paid off for them. Let's not be surprised if we see them be able to do the same thing here against the Flock. I think it's going to be a hard-fought, grinded-out game here. Expect the ball to be kept on the ground quite a bit for both teams. Chewing up some clock here. I think we have a fairly low-scoring game on our hands, and I'm going to play the under here. I'm going under 44.5 in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, some crazy stats with Kansas City in the second half. Talk about spags and adjustments. They average giving up only 7 points in the second half of games this year, and no team hit 30 on them. Like, no team's ever dropped 30 on KC, so they are younger. They are, the best defense we've seen Mahomes have. You give the edge experience-wise, obviously, to KC, but it's not going to be enough to get him past this hump, or is it?
I keep going back and forth on this one on the side, Joe. And you know what? Last night when we were sleeping, I missed a 4. I guess at a few books, it clicked 4 last night. And I wish I was able to get that. Now it's pretty much back to 3.5 everywhere. Joe, I do think the Ravens win this game, right? I was just talking to our good friend Ariel Epstein. She was telling me about how all the old school Ravens are going to be in the house. They're going to be coming out of the tunnel. She said Ray Lewis is going to be doing his dance. The place is going to be going insane. Finally, Harbaugh was able to keep pretty much everybody healthy this year. Harbaugh is a great coach. Obviously, Coach Fatso is a great coach. But, man, we've seen this Chiefs team in this position. What? This is 5 out of last 6 years that they've been in the AFC Championship. It's absolutely absurd. I think give the edge to the Ravens here. They're at home. Like I said before, Chiefs got to go against a couple decimated defenses there. Paid off for them. This is a much taller task. I think the Ravens win this game, but won't be surprised to see the Chiefs get the cover here. 3.5, 4. It's tough to give to 1-5.
It really, really is. All right, CT, we do. Speaking of which, we have some breaking news before we get to the Lions and Niners. It was just announced. And we mentioned it earlier, Harbaugh, the other Harbaugh, on his way to be the head coach of the Chargers. Looks like that deal is happening. He'll be leaving Michigan and heading back to the NFL, so we'll have much more on that coming up. And I knew when they canceled that second meeting with Atlanta, that's probably the reason why the deal was already done there. Like that fit, but his former team, the 49ers, they're at home. They're taking on everyone's favorite dog, the Cinderella, only there are no Cinderellas. Are there, Chris?
I don't think so. I agree with you. I think the best four teams are here, and I don't think we're going to see a Cinderella this weekend, especially in this one, Joe. It's no surprise, right, Joe? We saw it last weekend. The Niners' offense totally different without Debo, right? He brings that offense to a totally different level with his silky smooth playmaking, and of course his ability to run after he makes the catch. But without him, defenses are able to kind of dial in on guys like Ayuk, put more pressure on guys like him. And with Debo in the game, it's much easier for those guys to free up, like guys like Ayuk, guys like Kittle. And then we saw Purdy, right? He struggled in that weather big time last weekend. The good news for the Niners is the weather in Santa Clara looks much better and clear skies. That's weather that Purdy excels in, and he's very uncomfortable in that type of weather from last weekend. It was very noticeable. I think maybe we got some nerves out too. So that could be a benefit for the Niners. He needs to play in great weather, clear skies. So the Lions, who have had both their playoff games at home in the Dome, they didn't travel here to Santa Clara outside of their comfort zone, right? Check this out, Joe. The Lions only played outside a dome once in the past 12 games. And that one time was December 10th at Chicago. Every other road game was in a dome that they played. And I think that's going to be a pretty difficult task for them to not be inside their comfort zone. I played the Niners already, -6.5, -115, because I think Debo is going to play. And I don't know to what extent he's going to be effective, but I think when it's announced, I won't be surprised to see this line close 7.5 or 8. Niners have a massive edge with him in the game, even if he's just a decoy. If he doesn't go, I still like Purdy to pick apart this D with Jennings, Ayuk, Kittle. Spotlight's going to be too big for head coach Dan Campbell this weekend. Big coaching mismatch here. Niners D will be a lot better than what we saw last weekend. So I played on the Niners, -6.5, and sake of the show, -7.
You got to give them credit, man. I mean, 6 of 7 in the red zone for touchdowns this postseason, man. They made big plays, extended drives when they needed to late in games. They've won the turnover battle. It's crazy, CT. They got to be better than that, I think, in this game in order to be able to get it done. But, I mean, hats off. And you can't say enough great things about what Detroit and Dan Campbell and this team can be. But I do think this is where it is going to end. So according to you, I think we might see the Niners representing, and your gut tells you Baltimore on the other side. So 49 2 number 1 seeds. Chalky, is that where we're heading, you think?
It is. It's chalky, but I think that's the scenario we're gonna see after it's all said and done. Championship Sunday, Ravens.
Who's the favorite
Niners
in that game?
In the Super Bowl. Niners will be favored, I think. Well, last I saw, John Murray was going to make it a pick, and he said it would probably close San Fran -1 if Debo was healthy. I think, 1. I think that's pretty fair there. But depending let's see what happens to Debo this weekend. God forbid he plays and gets hurt again. I don't know. That line could change.
That line is going to change without him because he means an awful lot to that 49ers team. But as of now, looks like he will be going. All right, so we go from the NFL. Let's talk college hoops here tonight. You circled the game for us. Is this Big Ten? Where are we going here tonight?
Yeah, we're going Big Ten. Illinois travels to Northwestern, and Illinois took care of business versus Northwestern in Illini. I think they beat them by 30 earlier in the year. Joe, it's really hard to win in the Big Ten and the Big 12 on the road. We're not going to play a side tonight. We're going with a total. And the Illini have been very impressive, right? And they just got even more dangerous because they got back sharpshooter Terrence Shannon Jr. from suspension last game. Even though he was very rusty last game, he didn't put up many points. They put up 86 still in a win over Rutgers. The Illini have talent all over the floor, and all five guys, when they're on the floor, all five starters can score. So everyone's kind of been saying that they're going to see some regression from the Illini offense. I think it's probably coming. I don't think they could kind of keep the pace that they've been going at, but I think they should be okay tonight. They're going to put up some points. And you look at the other side, the Wildcats, they're no slouch on offense themselves either. They barely turn the ball over. Cats are also one of the best three-point shooting teams in the Big Ten. The backcourt duo, Boo Buie and Ty Berry, both can flat out shoot the ball. Then add in the forward, Ryan Langborg. He could also light it up from deep. I think we're going to see some scoring from both teams tonight. I think the Cats will be able to kind of keep pace with the Illini. Let's go up and over. 145 it's down to now, Joe, before we hopped on.
Yeah.
So up and over 145, and we get the cash there. I think it's a high-scoring game here, and they will keep pace with the Cats will keep pace with the Illini at home there.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, it's amazing how they've kind of been chameleon-like. Everyone thinks Northwestern, slow pace, a lot of defense, but they have been more than willing to go up and at them with other teams here this year, scoring a lot of points. So that might have been different, and Bowie didn't go 2 for 15 from 3 against Nebraska. It might have had a different story there in that last game, but I'm with you. I think there's points coming in this one, and Illinois quietly becoming a very difficult team for people to be able to handle. Not like my Oklahoma State Cowboys, however, where just scream it from the rooftops. Next time we know anybody that says, I'm gonna take Oklahoma State. No, tell them no, CT, please.
Joe, I felt for those guys last night. Or a couple of our friends had your pokes, and man, that was a tough one to swallow for them. Joe, how good is this conference, right? It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
6 teams from the Big 12 are in Ken Palm's top 25. It's a battle every single night. I was on the Houston Cougars last night, and they're laying 2 on the road in BYU. You know how hard it is to play in that high altitude. That's a tough game. They ended up grinding it out. But, man, Texas Tech, Kansas State, Houston, KU, Baylor, Iowa State, even OU, Texas. I mean, these are all teams that you could expect to see in the big dance, Joe. It's going to be fun down the stretch here.
Yeah, well, and they're all – North Carolina's not really that good, CT, but it'll be interesting to see how they work it out here, my friend. CT, Chris Thurston, my man, always a pleasure, brother. Let's cash those tickets. We'll talk to you again next week. Game Time Decisions returns next year on the Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The early line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time
I have
Decisions.
no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We
We
did.
did like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in as we close out this first hour of Game Time Decisions. Much more still to come, including breaking news. If you are just joining us here on the SportsGrid Network, it is being reported that Jim Harbaugh will be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, which means he will be leaving the Michigan Wolverines right after winning the national championship this past year. Now, we did tell you earlier that we did find it a little strange that it was being reported the second interview with the Atlanta Falcons for the head coaching job was canceled. And I did think that was a pretty good indicator that either the Falcons were about to hire somebody or Jim Harbaugh had made his decision to take another job. And that's exactly what it appears to be done. Looks like the Chargers are in the process right now. He is in L.A. It has been confirmed that he stayed out in L.A. So it looks like that's what's going on, according to, I believe, Jordan Schultz is a reporter in the L.A. area that is reporting that is where he is going to go. That means Harbaugh will return to the NFL to coach where he retired as a player in the year. Anybody want to take a guess? The last time Harbaugh threw a football in the NFL? Yeah, this is a awful number. 2000. That's right. Harbaugh will coach the team that he retired with as a player back in the year 2000. He is on his way. If I am the Justin Herbert, I could not. I mean, I am crack the bottles, my man. You've got yourself a head coach that you might actually be able to win with this time. We'll have much more on this. Plus, we'll take a look at the upcoming games tonight here as Game Time Decisions continues next on the Grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. A very happy Wednesday to you, the 24th of January. Yes, as we are getting ready for a big slate of games here, not only in the NHL, but we've got plenty of NBA as well as college hoops getting ready to go underway. And let us, if you're just joining us here, breaking news. It is being reported that Jim Harbaugh will be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, which also means the Michigan Wolverines will be looking for a new head coach after they just won the national championship. So we'll have much more on this coming up throughout the hour here. A lot going on when it comes to head coaches, especially in the NBA, where we just learned the Milwaukee Bucks fired their coach 24 hours ago, and tonight will be the first opportunity that we have to see this new look Milwaukee Bucks team at home taking on the Cavs without their former head coach. But instead, apparently, Doc Rivers is on his way and has been hired to take over the Milwaukee Bucks. And we had a very interesting conversation yesterday here on Game Time Decisions with the coach, James Young, who has a few thoughts on Doc Rivers. Here's what he had to say.
Giannis runs the show. It's very obvious. Like, if you think about it, folks, they got rid of Mike Budenholzer, and Kevin and I both have talked about the issues with Budenholzer. So when you go and you are close to winning a championship, right? So you two of the top three guys that you're interviewing are Adrian Griffin and Nick Nurse. One guy's one of the 5 best coaches in the NBA, has an NBA title. Another guy's never been the head coach. So what do? You go and you hire Adrian Griffin. Then, all right, then you go and hire Terry Stotts as an experienced assistant because Kevin and I have talked about it. You need to have some kind of experience on the bench. Look what happened with Joe Mazzulla last year, so on and so forth. They're bringing Terry Stotts. Here comes Dane. There goes Stotts. Stotts is gone. Oh, like 2 weeks later, he's gone. This team is being run by Giannis. Giannis is getting whatever the hell he wants. And I'm going to say this, folks, and maybe this is me as a coach saying this. At some point, you have to look in the mirror of your players, particularly your best player, and say, maybe this is on you. So what are we going to do now, Milwaukee? You're going to go hire Doc Rivers? Like that is the solution to this. It's going to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, who could have won with the Clippers, who could have won with the Sixers, is going to go and save the day in Milwaukee. Lord have mercy. I pray to God that the Sixers play the Bucks in the playoffs, and I will run to the window and put everything I have on Philadelphia because Doc is not the answer, and now Giannis has to take ownership for what he did in Milwaukee. And the last thing, Giannis, how about this, bro? You want to be the best player in the world? Because now I just said it. I think Joel Embiid's the best player in the world. Why don't you do this, brother? Let me see you start to guard the best player. Let me see you guard Jimmy Butler. Let me see you guard Tyrese Halliburton. Let me see you step up to the plate and not hide. Let Jalen Brunson drop a 50-piece on you, 40-some-odd points on around Christmas. Let me see you step up, Giannis, because right now there's a lot of bad should be going towards Giannis's way because this is why this is all going down in Milwaukee.
Yeah, as we welcome in our radio audience here on this Wednesday. It is Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Just heard from our good friend, the coach, James Young, not excited about the new hire for the Milwaukee Bucks. Out goes Adrian Griffin. In comes Doc Rivers, one of the if not the single greatest, most underperforming postseason coach in the history of the game. Yeah, well, he is on his way to partner up with Giannis and company there and hopefully right this ship. I don't quite understand what the direction they think they're going to head in. If this is all about, and I'm with Coach here, I think this is Giannis realizing when he backed the idea of bringing Griffin in as the head coach and now trying to get out from under it. This is a ton of pressure on Giannis. But again, I don't think the franchise makes this move without Giannis giving the thumbs up. And that includes with what we just had here with the announcement that Doc Rivers is going to be coming in. Now, Doc is notoriously known for, he's a player's guy. He's a player's coach. He's going to let you do what you want. That only works with certain personalities of teams. That is not going to work with the Milwaukee Bucks, especially since you already have a championship over the last couple of years. If winning in the postseason is what matters and you're willing to say, hey, listen, we'll take more losses during the regular season, we're okay because the postseason is really what matters, then how in the hell can you justify bringing in Doc Rivers, who has never, ever led a team to the promised land that wasn't just filled with Hall of Famers there? This is a guy that has come up short. Just ask Embiid how great Doc Rivers is. The Clippers, how great he is. It has been a rough stretch. This guy has shown that when it comes down to mano-a-mano, right, when you got the two best teams in the NBA going at it on the biggest stage, those types of coaches, the Eric Spoelstras, the Popoviches, the guys that are truly some of the best X's and O's basketball coaches in the game, they just out-coach him every time. We watch it happen. How many times have we seen this happen? We just watched Spoelstra school him again last year. So I don't get it. I hope it works for them. But this is the easy choice for them, which I don't think is going to end well for Damian Lillard and Giannis. And our first chance at seeing how big a problem was Adrian Griffin. How big a problem? Well, we're going to find out here as we get ready for the opening tip here tonight. Their first game will be against the red-hot Cleveland Cavaliers here tonight. And the Cavs have been absolutely rolling. Now it looks like the Milwaukee Bucks, well, they are laying at least 7.5 here as that game is tipping off at 8 o'clock here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So at the top of next hour, you either believe the Bucks, this is a great thing for the Bucks, or you believe this is going to blow up and we are going to have an absolute train wreck in Milwaukee. I think the Bucks have an inspired effort here tonight. I laid the 7 with them this morning. I do think the Cavs may be just a little overvalued right now in the market. We'll have much more on the slate of games in the NBA and more on the breaking news with Jim Harbaugh next year on Game Time Decisions.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home-road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The early line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon, not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time
You
Decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. A lot going on here as breaking news hitting us left and right. If you are just joining us, of course, Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan, heading back to the NFL to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. So they absolutely got the guy that they wanted there. So no more Brandon Staley. Welcome in back to the NFL, Jim Harbaugh, as we welcome in our good friend here, Mark Zinnos. We've got all sorts of headlines breaking here today, Zin, in the NFL. And, of course, we still have a couple of games to be played this weekend. But we'll start with the latest here. Harbaugh to the Chargers. Ironically enough, I had mentioned it earlier. A lot of people don't realize the Chargers were the team he retired with back in 2000 when he finally retired from the NFL. But he is heading back, which means this is big on 2 fronts. Who the hell is going to take over the Michigan job now? Who gets that gig? And now that I would think more of the NFL dominoes start to fall now that the Chargers locked up Harbaugh here.
Yeah, I think the assistant crier coach is the one who gets the job, right? The guy who cried, I forget his name. Yeah, I mean, you have to give it to the crier at this point. I say that in jest, but from everything I've heard, he's probably the guy that's in line automatically to get the job. And they have now 30 days to keep all their fingers in the dam, right? From guys getting out of there and saying, I don't want to play here anymore. I came to play for Harbaugh. So they got to make a decision quickly. If they do it within house and somebody they're familiar with, I think that hopefully stops some of the bleeding of guys hitting the transfer portal and going somewhere else. As far as the NFL is concerned, I mean, the other big name out there now is Belichick. And I'm starting to get the sense that, look, Belichick is not like openly saying, hey, what jobs are available? Like there's jobs that he wants and jobs that he doesn't. And if he doesn't get one, guess what? He's just not going to coach. Like Belichick is not going to go run to coach, the Bears, or even if it still has a job. But you get my point. He's not going to go run and coach the Titans because, the Titans have their coach now too. But you get my point. Like, so that he's just not. It doesn't have to be. So if it's not the Falcons for Belichick, he may just take a year off and see what happens here. But it's interesting to see now that Harbaugh has planted himself. That I think the rest of the dominoes will quickly start to fall.
Yeah, no, they will. I mean, and it was funny when I heard earlier that they had canceled the second meeting that Harbaugh was supposed to have with the Falcons. I said, well, that's either the Falcons are about to make the decision and announce a hire, or Harbaugh has found the team. And it turns out that Harbaugh has found his team here. I thought the Fangio leaving Miami after one season to join Philadelphia as the DC. I think this is huge for Sirianni. He has got to fill those positions with people he can trust that can get the job done, because There will be there's no more room to hang himself. He's getting ready. He's got to figure it out offensively. I think it's a great hire. How you got Fangio to come with that defense that Philadelphia has, those young guys, I think it's a home run hire, but he better get the offense right here. Otherwise, Sirianni will, maybe it'll be Belichick next year with Philadelphia.
Yeah. And again, I wouldn't totally rule out that, could we see something crazy happen where one of these coaches that wasn't going to get fired, now with Belichick still available, may all of a sudden get fired? Is that a real possibility? For a team that didn't think they had a shot at him, now all of a sudden it goes, maybe we do got a shot at Belichick. Like, is it worth picking up the phone if the Falcons go in a different direction? Could the Eagles say, maybe we do want Bill Belichick here?
Mm-hmm.
Even the Cowboys to us, maybe we do. Maybe we should probably rethink this and see where that wouldn't surprise me at all.
It's going to be interesting. Washington, Seattle, right? Atlanta. And I know Vrabel's making the tour here as well, around getting interviews after interviews. You're in Atlanta. You seem to think that if it hasn't happened by now, it's as the days go on, the less likely it is that Belichick, which we had all heard was a foregone conclusion, but you have your doubts that the more this drags out, the less likely it is him to be the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
This is kind of how it went down. And for those who don't know the power structure within the Falcons, it's Arthur Blank and Rich McKay. And Terry Fontenot, the quote GM, it's a title only. And the Falcons told us that when they fired Arthur Smith, because Terry Fontenot was not at that press conference. It was Arthur Blank and Rich McKay. And I have been to maybe a dozen fired coach press conferences in my career across all sports. That's the first time I've ever seen a GM not be in the room for that conversation. So they sort of, emasculated him and clipped his in that press conference by saying, yeah, he's not important enough to handle this decision, or he's not part of this decision. It's Blank and Rich McKay. And I think when Arthur Blank met with Bill Belichick on his boat alone, that was the feel out like, hey, can you and Rich work together? And Belichick said, well, maybe, kind of deal. And then they had the meeting with Arthur Blank, Rich McKay, Bill Belichick, Terry Fontenot, and the rest of the thing. And from what I heard, it was not a positive meeting overall. And if you look at the timeline, too, the Falcons had prevented all their assistants from interviewing right after Bill Belichick had met with Arthur Blank. Then they had the second meeting, and then all of a sudden, all their coaches could go interview, and some of them got hired away, like their DC, Ryan Nielsen, who's now the DC in Jacksonville. And, I get the sense that if it didn't happen by now, well, then there is a lot of consternation, and you have to kind of hit the rewind button. If you remember Spygate, you remember Deflategate. Do you know Rich McKay's other job, Joe, with the other thing, and one of the reasons why Arthur Blank values him so highly? He's head of the competition committee. The competition committee was part of the decision in those punishments for what Spygate and Deflategate did. So there's a little bit of consternation between Belichick and McKay and the competition committee for all the stuff that went on that happened to the Patriots in that time. And I just don't think at this point in time that this is a fait accompli anymore. And the Falcons are starting to do second interviews and more interviews with assistants and everything else. Like, when you got your guy, you satisfy the Rooney Rule and you hire your guy. And they haven't done that yet. So I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but the longer this is out, Belichick may end up still being a free agent when this is all said and done. And if the Falcons blow a 2-interview lead to the Patriots, Bill Belichick once again, it would probably be right on course for them after blowing a 28-3 lead.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. Slowick, the OC, getting a lot of love there from the Texans. We'll see if that happens. But still, Vrabel is available. Belichick available. A lot of, that's, I would think those, or at least one of those two is going to be the next domino to fall here. But bring me to this weekend, because we got a couple of games going on. Which one of these two games do you, they're interesting in both games, but I really only like one. Do you have a favorite coming up this weekend?
Yeah. I bet the Ravens money line on Sunday night when the line came out. I laid 170, didn't care. Wasn't dealing with the 3.5 points. I also have a future on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. So, and you see that money line is shot up over the course of the past couple of days. So I actually have a better number now than I thought I was going to get as the initial fluctuations happened here. But let me give you something else that I'm on here. If you look at Lamar Jackson's rushing yards prop here, this is very interesting because his number was at 57 on Sunday. It shot up into the mid to high 60s now. Lamar Jackson has made 77 career starts. When he rushes for 70 yards, the Ravens are 25-8 straight up. When he rushes for 90 yards, they're 17-2 straight up. In his 5 playoff starts, he's rushed for 100 yards in 3 of them. The 2 that he didn't, guess what? The Ravens lost. Lamar has told you that he wants the ball in his hands with the game on the line. So I believe he's going over this number. I believe he's going way over this number. It's probably still going to go up at some point in time, but Lamar Jackson rushing yards prop, Ravens money line is where I'm at right now.
Those two things are very correlated and very cashable there as we get ready for the conference championships. I don't think it's going to be a surprise, or people should be surprised when the number 1 seed takes on a number 1 seed. After all, there really aren't any Cinderellas. It never happens that way. Mark Zinno, a pleasure, my man. Cash those tickets this week. Game Time Decisions returns here on the Grid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in the divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy,
the early line,
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell,
backup quarterback.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time Decisions.
You have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live,
just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
that was
late
good
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
Yeah.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. As off and running, a lot going on here this week. Obviously, with the NFL and the conference championships, we're down to 4, and the winners here will play for a championship here in a couple of weeks. And because of the importance of those games, the PGA Tour and the Farmers Insurance Open has opted to let the NFL be the only thing really worth watching on Sunday. And we welcome in our good friend Brady Cannon, because we don't often on Wednesday, Brady, get to talk first round of golf tournaments here. But because of this time of year and because of the NFL, looks like we get to start this a little bit earlier here. Talk to me about what you were approaching this at Torrey Pines. Give me some names here that you were looking at pre-flop.
Yeah, good to be with you once again, Joe. And I really love the fact that the PGA Tour has done this. First of all, it's about 5 or 6 years ago that they adjusted their schedule to get out of the way of football. And now for the third straight year, they've adjusted the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines to stay out of the way of football again. These people are smart. I wish, baseball would do more of the same. And, I think they just accelerate their own sports, and you have to realize football is king. So what I looked at coming into this golf tournament, I went to school down in San Diego. I played this golf course half a dozen times. It is a absolute beast of a golf course. The South course, they play 2 courses, the South and the North. They'll play 3 out of the 4 rounds on the South. But the South, obviously getting the bulk of the action here, is the real beast. That's where they played the U.S. Open a couple times. Nearly 7,800 yards and pretty narrow fairways. So I looked at total driving, which is a combination of accuracy and length off the tee. Then I looked at iron play from 200 yards plus, because a lot of your approach shots are going to be from deep in that fairway to the green. And then I looked at scrambling, because with a lot of those long iron shots, you're not going to hit the green in regulation all the time, and you're going to have to get up and down throughout the week. And so far, so good, man. Shane Lowry was one of my guys. Now, he started on the North course, but he shot 6 under par, a great start for him. He's tied for 4th. Nikolai Højgaard was a stab I took at 50-1. This is his first time ever playing here. And he actually shot the low round of the day, tied for the low round of the day on the South course. On the harder, more difficult South course, it looks to be, I don't know the exact numbers. I'm sure we'll see it come out. But it looks like the South course is playing about 2 shots harder than the North today. So I love having Højgaard shooting a 5 under on the harder South course today. He'll go play the North tomorrow. Maybe he can go 5 or 6 under again, and he'll be sitting pretty looking going into the weekend. And then I have Harris English, who shot 4 under par today on the North, and then Tony Finau, who shot 3 under on the South. Finau's just been an absolute machine in his career at this track. He's got 5 top 10 finishes, including a runner-up. So that's 4 guys right there that I've got in the mix, and, so far, so good.
Yeah, well, and I see, obviously, some familiar names up at the top there. Cantlay should not be a shock to anybody, although I thought he was a little chalky. But how about Matsuyama up there, which I think is interesting? Colin Morikawa is going to win at some point, is he not? He better, because he owes me money from the meltdown a year ago in Hawaii. So
yes, me and you both.
I'm saying there are some guys that I really do think 8 under led today, right? So is this a tournament where 20 under wins? Is this going to get progressively more difficult? Where do you think we land here, and where should we be looking heading into round 2?
Yeah, good questions, Joe. The pre-tournament winning score proposition bet was under or over 272.5, which translates to 15.5 under par. I think it'll be pretty close to that, because, I do believe it'll get progressively more difficult. And over the weekend, it's 2 rounds on the South course. After tomorrow, the North course is out of there, and you're not going to have a lot of 8 unders and 7 unders and 6 unders and that type of thing. If I was going to be looking at a player, and you mentioned Cantlay and Matsuyama, I think Morikawa started on the South. And I believe he shot 4 under. So that's really good to shoot 4. I would say 3 under or better on the South is a real good start. But if you're looking to play on a player now in game, if you will, after the first round wraps up, I would look at a player that started on the South and did pretty well. Maybe 2 under, 1 under. If you go too much higher, obviously you're not getting great odds, but you can probably find some pretty good value on some guys that shot 1, 2, or 3 under. I think Tony Finau is still about 20-1 pre-tournament. I got him at 28. I think for the most part, he was trading around 25, but my point is I wouldn't necessarily go to a guy that went really low on the North today because they're going to play the South tomorrow and they could go sideways. They could shoot 5 over. I mean, the South course is hard. So, if I'm looking at playing a future bet right now in game, I'd look at a guy that did well on the South course today and is headed to the easier North course tomorrow.
Yeah, a much longer course on the South too as well. So, and by the way, Morikawa 5 under 67 on that course here today. So certainly
very nice, very nice.
Going to be real interesting. So a good opportunity here, guys, to be able to jump in as they are finishing up. A lot of guys are just finishing up and getting ready for tomorrow. All right, we got breaking news. That broke there.
Speaking
about
of San Diego,
going. That's what I'm saying, man. The Chargers got their guy. Love it for Herbert. Love it for the Chargers. No idea what the hell is going to happen to Michigan now, but you won your national championship. Go away. What do you like the hire with Harbaugh back in the NFL now?
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, Joe, I'm a 49er fan. I grew up a 49er fan, and Harbaugh was awesome for the 49ers. Took him to 2 championship games and a Super Bowl, if I recall exactly. He also coached my alma mater, University of San Diego, the Toreros, and went undefeated there. And their quarterback was a guy that might still be in the NFL. He's like a 3rd stringer or something, Josh Johnson. I know he came in that championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles for the 49ers last year. He's been bouncing around forever. Harbaugh ought to just stay there in San Diego and go watch the rest of the Farmers Insurance Open there in La Jolla. But, I mean, the Bay Area, San Diego, not too shabby. This guy ain't dumb. Going to a couple of pretty nice spots. San Diego, maybe one of the nicest spots in the world. You mentioned Justin Herbert. Harbaugh has kind of always had that reputation as a quarterback whisperer. He did wonders with Alex Smith. He did wonders with Colin Kaepernick. I think he'll do great things for Justin Herbert. Tom Telesco, and a lot of people will look at the results of the players he drafted and say, they never amounted to anything. I chalk that more up to the coaching. The Chargers have had awful coaching. Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, a lot of these really, I mean, you and I, Joe, every year it seems we look at the draft, after that first 3 days of the draft, and we go, damn, the Chargers nailed it again. And I think the coaching has been the problem why some of these guys really don't blossom as stars in the NFL. I mean, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Rashawn Slater, Asante Samuel, trying to get the name there. But, I mean, they've just drafted a number of studs, but now Telesco is gone. So, you wonder how they're going to fill that void, but I think they certainly got the coaching hire right. I think Harbaugh will have immediate impact, just like he did on the Niners. You wonder if kind of his rah, approach, which has worked for years for Pete Carroll, but I think eventually it wore thin with San Francisco. You wonder, he's probably learned his lesson. That was a long time ago, and maybe he has a little bit different approach these days, but the way I think he comes into a building and has that energy and that enthusiasm, it's an immediate fix, I think, for a lot of problems that ails, whatever team he's going in to try and turn around, in this case, the Chargers. So I think it will be, we'll see results quickly. The question is how long can it last?
Yeah, I'm the 49ers when he was there, 3 NFC championship games, lost to his brother in the Super Bowl there with the Ravens. He has spent pretty much the last decade at Michigan, and he's 60 now. So when he left, he was his late 40s, early 50s. He absolutely could not get along with the GM at the 49ers there. He did rub guys really the wrong way there, but I do think, at the college level now, goes out on top, does everything he set out to do for Michigan, delivered them the national championship, beats Ohio State, so he doesn't owe Michigan anything else, but I think he's been that kind of guy where I think that's the one thing he's always wanted. And, it was funny. He retired a Charger. Like his final year of playing in the NFL, right. He was a Charger of all things. So very interesting there with the Chargers. I don't know what their future line is now, Brady, but I'm going to imagine it probably just jumped up a few points, the Chargers, to win the Super Bowl next year. What do you think?
It did. It went from 30-1 to 25. Just on the signing of Jim Harbaugh. No, that says a lot. That says a lot.
It says everything. Yep.
How often does a coach move the needle like that? That's a big deal.
Never. That's the whole point. I mean, it's going to be interesting when Belichick eventually, if he signs with somebody, what happens to those odds? Vrabel, I think, is another guy that's going to push the needle. There is still a lot to be determined, including the games that we've got coming up here. All right, let's cash some tickets on the golf course, Brady. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll be back after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with one touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy,
the early line,
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon, not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell,
backup quarterback.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time Decision.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live.
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
that was
late
better.
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
want to say Trent Baalke was the former 49er GM that butted heads with Harbaugh, forcing him to leave the NFL and head back to college and Michigan. Well, it worked out. Let's face it, worked out pretty well because he just won a national championship for his alma mater, Michigan, and he is now returning. If you're just joining us, some breaking news. Returning to the NFL with the Chargers, just signed a 5-year deal from what we understand. And it's a good fit. He is a, South Cali guy. He coached San Diego, the Toreros, coached at Stanford, coached the 49ers. This was always the one place we thought if he was going to leave, this would be the opportunity for him to return to the NFL. As we welcome in Scotty Wetzel, Mr. Opposite Picks, taking over here at the top of the hour for In-Game Live Primetime. Not a shock. I do think we were all kind of anticipating and waiting for this. And when they came out with the story today about how the NCAA was willing to offer Harbaugh immunity so they could throw other guys like it just college. You just had to know he wasn't going back. Plus, not to mention, Scotty, what the hell else does he have? It can only go down from here, right? He leaves Michigan doing what he said he wanted to do. He wins a national championship. Now it's time to go back to the NFL. I love the move. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, you always get out before they kick you out, right? Isn't that the old saying?
Yeah.
So who knows what the NCAA would have done? You'll never convince me he didn't know exactly whether he orchestrated it or not. Who knows? But you can't sit there and tell me with a straight face as the head coach, I didn't know the guy standing next to me who's handing all these signs to our defensive coordinator, didn't get this somewhere, somehow, through illegal ways. So he's as guilty as sin. So you know what? Let me get out. And he can always go back, right, Joe? I mean, now he's always got a feather in the cap. He's always got his ace up his sleeve, no matter how bad things go for him in the NFL. If they were to go, he could always go back. Versus if he stays another year or two and they throw sanctions at them and you can't go to bowl games or whatever the case may be, he leaves in a sour note. Now he knows he always has that extra job. So, yeah, it makes sense. It's been rumored, right? I did think he was going to stay just because, you want to be able to receive the benefits of your labor, whereas you win the national championship and you'll be told you're the greatest thing in the world for the next year or so, but he doesn't get that. Gets right back into the fire with the Chargers, but hey, listen, he's got a big-time quarterback. It's a division that, okay, you got Kansas City, but who knows what about the Raiders and the Broncos at this point, so it's a winnable division. All things considered, weather, great. Not a bad landing spot for him.
No, it's not. Now, let me ask you, listen, he's going to inherit a top 5 quarterback. He's got, Keenan Allen. Mike Williams will be back healthy this year. He's got great guys on the defense. And Jesse Mintner, his defensive coordinator from Michigan, appears to be taking the ride with him to the Chargers. So it looks like he will come over and be the DC there and infuse a little bit of life. But if you're Michigan, Scotty, if you're the president, you're on the board there, are you not calling Nick Saban?
Ooh, Nicky Quick, just to see. Michigan State. He coached at Michigan State, right? You got to at least give him a phone call, right? You got to at least pick up the phone and just say, are you interested, right? Because, they all want to give it to the Sharon guy, but, is he going to keep, as I tweeted out, let's see how many kids he actually got the job. Yeah. How many kids? They all say they love him and everything, Joe, but, a week from now when 25 guys are in the transfer portal, there's so much for that love, Let me go somewhere else now. You think about the Big Ten, right? This year, they're looking at, winning the national championship with either Michigan or Washington, either one. We got both next year.
Yep.
Oh, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world. We got Oregon coming in. Oh, great, right? Now, you get Michigan, but under besiege of all allegations, and you lose the head coach. Washington comes in, but you lose that head coach. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, geez, we got more mediocre football. Great, just what we needed.
Yeah, well, and a lot of change, which is never good with the new NIL deals and the transfer portal here. And listen, the guy did nothing except deliver there, Sharon, for them. He's been rumored to be the guy. It would make the most sense because he's also probably one of the lead recruiters there. So the guys all know him if you're going to keep any of them. But you gotta call Saban. No, like somebody's got to pick up the phone. Because I don't think, listen, he loved Alabama, but something stinks there. Like something, I don't know what it is with Saban. Just out of nowhere, you just, all right. So you lose to Harbaugh and that's it? Like that, you retire?
Yeah.
I don't know that Saban is necessarily done, and it won't get any more high profile than Michigan. No, you got to call him at least.
Yeah.
Or Urban
that
was
weird, right?
How about Urban?
They had quotes from. How about Urban? Would you give Urban a shot despite the Jacksonville debacle? You know, he might. That may have gone so bad that he says, you know what, I'll give it a shot. But would Ohio State or would Michigan fans ever accept an Ohio State head coach? Boy, I don't know.
As long as he
Jets
beats
and
Ohio
Giants,
State.
we had it with Bill Parcells, but
that's right. Yep.
College.
Think about it.
But
yeah,
I mean,
Urban's coming back at some point. I don't know when, but he's coming back here at some point. All right, so now that we've got that, the dominoes are going to start to fall. I think Vrabel's next. Belichick, if it ain't Atlanta, I don't know what they're waiting for, but if it's not Atlanta, maybe he doesn't coach this year here. But of the remaining jobs, and there are still, Washington, Carolina, Seattle now, and Atlanta, right? So we got 4 remaining. What's the next domino to fall here? Is it Vrabel? Is it the next hot coordinator? Like, who gets the next job here?
I would think it would be Belichick down in Atlanta. You know, I mean, wouldn't it be something, Joe, that Bill Belichick tells the world he clearly wants to coach again, right? And what do we have, 7 openings when everything was said and done? 7, 8 openings? So you add them all up, and he didn't get one? I mean, wow. You're talking about supposedly the greatest coach, certainly one of the greatest coaches of all time, tells the NFL world, I still want to coach, and yet nobody hires him? I mean, any debate that the inner circles of the NFL had on whether it's Belichick or Brady, clearly they sent the message. It was Brady. It wasn't you, Bill. Sorry. You know what? I got 7, 8 openings, and you're not good for any of them. So now maybe he'd only take a couple. Maybe he wouldn't go to Carolina. Maybe he wouldn't go to Seattle, whatever the case may be. But I think the Belichick Atlanta thing, that's, you know, again, kind of like with Harbaugh, right? A lot of smoke, couple of interviews. You know, maybe they had dreams of hiring Harbaugh. This takes them off the table. And now they say, okay, Bill, this is your job if you want it.
Yeah, and by the way, it also goes, does he really want the Carolina job and work for Tepper? No.
Yeah.
Does he want the Washington job? Although they have some talent there, right? I mean, Washington is interesting here because they've got a whole lot coming their way. They can build an entire new franchise over the draft in the next couple of weeks. So with all the picks they have, and I don't think him and Pete Carroll would work well out west because Pete Carroll still is a consultant. You got rid of Carroll and you replace him with Belichick. I don't see that happening. But we do have 2 games coming up this weekend. I've been asking everyone. I don't like the 49er-Detroit game because I think there's far too many questions in that one. Is there a pick that you like? Which one of these games are you most comfortable and feel the most confident in coming up this weekend?
Well, if you asked me yesterday, I would have told you Baltimore, but I don't know. You know, I slept on the wrong side of the pillow or something, but now I'm thinking, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I can get the greatest quarterback. When everything is said and done, Pat Mahomes is going to be named the greatest quarterback of all time. He may not get as many Super Bowls as Brady, but when everything is said and done, folks, what he's going to put up and everything, he's going to be the greatest. So I get the greatest quarterback of all time. I can get a team that's seemingly turned things around. It's got a good defense. Now, they picked up, Rashee Rice is all of a sudden turning into a real wide receiver. And I can get 3.5 points. Not just 3.5. The guy's 9-1-1 as an underdog, 2-0 in the postseason against the team that still has demons about not being able to perform in the postseason. I flipped, yeah. Give me Kansas City, Joe. I'll take. I don't know if it's going to be a high-scoring game or not, but you want to give me Kansas City plus 3.5 points, I'll take that against anybody, anywhere.
Yeah, I think we're actually going to get points early. And again, what I watched Spags and Kansas City do after they got absolutely bulldozed early by the running game of Buffalo, they only give up 7 points in the second half all season. So the adjustments that Spags is making in that defense, yeah, you better keep it close early, because that second half, it's going to be extremely interesting there. But if you can get the hook, Scotty, you got to kind of take it, right? You know what I mean? You got to kind of take it. What don't you like about the 49er-Detroit game here? If Debo doesn't play, I got a hard time laying a touchdown with the 49ers.
That's the thing. Now, listen, they got a ton of weapons, right? But, when you just take one piece out, I think Brandon Ayuk showed last week, he's really not a number one wide receiver. Not that anyone said he was, yes. But, I don't think, he's able to step into that role and be the number one guy for a full game. That's a big missing part if he doesn't play. It's funny, Brock Purdy didn't look great last week. Got the job done. Won the football game. No two ways about it. And had the big drive. But he didn't exactly exude any confidence in me to lay a touchdown this week. So it's kind of, if I got Debo playing, we find out tomorrow, maybe Friday, Saturday, he's going to play. Even if he's banged up, okay. But if he doesn't play, man, this Lions team, and Jared Goff, this probably is like the worst thing for Jared Goff, Joe, in that not only is he outdoors, but the weather should be fine, but he's playing in front of his friends and his families from that area. And I just see Jared Goff turning back into Jared Goff, versus if he was playing, pick another city, anywhere in the NFC where he doesn't have that kind of pressure. They're playing with house money. It's loosey-goosey. You lose, no big deal. But now if he doesn't do well, it's because you choked and you couldn't handle the pressure and your friends and family got involved. And not a good spot for Detroit in my eyes.
No, it's not a great spot at all for them. Also, it was we had Mark Zinno on earlier, and it was I read this here today. It's been forever since Detroit's actually played an outdoor game, Scotty. It feels like every game they've played, they have played indoors or in Detroit, it feels like, over the last month and a half, and now you got to go outdoors. That's a little bit hesitant here, if you ask me. I know you got some best bets coming up here tonight. Stick around for us here quick, and we'll when we come back on the way out, you can lay out your favorite plays here tonight for everyone. But I'm not running to the window to bet Jared Goff outdoors yet either. Are you?
No, a little concerning. His numbers against the spread, great, but I don't know. That's good weather. Even with good weather, I'd be worried.
Still outdoors. I don't. There's just so many things I don't like about that game. It's funny. All right, when we come back, we'll close it out. We'll get Scott's favorite plays here of the night. Game Time Decisions returns.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Some refer to him as a game manager, Mark. I mean, throwing for over 250 yards in divisional round, 39 attempts. I don't know if that really chalks up to being a game manager. He was kind of throwing it around with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Pretty efficient.
Whatever we saw from Jared Goff in 2 home playoff games, I would expect something dynamically different from what we're going to see from him on the road. That's just the way it's been his entire career. His home road splits have always been pretty dynamic.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy,
the early line,
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell, coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game Time Decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live.
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
that was
late
better.
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Looking to close out Game Time Decisions here. Scotty Wetzel coming up, take over in-game live prime time. He's got a few best bets here tonight you need to know before the game starts. Scotty, what do you got for us here?
It's a great betting night. It's really just a great betting night. There's so many angles, so many systems in play. We got systems versus systems with winners bet with streaks, losers bet against streaks. We got not 1 but 2 Black Cloud coaches fired systems in play. We'll start in college basketball. DePaul firing its head coach. Poor guy never had a shot right. Getting 17.5 against Marquette. At home, DePaul, you got to play it. I know they stink, but you got to play it. Give me the 17.5 by the hook. Get it up to 18 if you can. Switch over to the NBA. We got Milwaukee. Despite being the second best team in the NBA record-wise, firing their poor head coach. They host Cleveland. Cavs have won 8 in a row, but boy, they clearly hated this guy. So we're going to get Milwaukee's A game versus Cleveland's A. I'll take the Bucks A game. Give me Milwaukee minus the 6.5. And then a little tidbit here, Joe, in the NHL, they have these things called mother games in which mothers of the players go to their games, always on the road. And tonight, and they keep it under wraps for whatever reason. Well, we found out Carolina Hurricanes, it's mom's night tonight in Boston. Bruins playing great. Carolina live dog at plus 120. Watch them beat Boston in front of the moms in the stands.
All right, little mom night, rather. Should be always a good time there. Scotty Wetzel taking over top of the hour here in just a couple of minutes. We appreciate it, Scotty. Cash those tickets here tonight. When the man says he's got a system, the man has got a system. You do not argue with it here, but he'll carry you right through till 10 o'clock here tonight on the SportsGrid Network as Gabe Morency, Cam Stewart will take over right through the midnight hour. So a lot going on here tonight on the hardwood. College, NBA, NHL. Get ready for some midweek golf. And, of course, a couple of football games coming up on Sunday, too, to decide who is going to represent which conference for a Super Bowl. We'll be back tomorrow with Game Time Decisions. Until then, good luck with your plays tonight.